time for Coffee with Kilroy, or what I like to call beverage in a book. My beverage, coffee. Yours, well, that's up to you, whatever you like. The book is The Fields of Normandy, a solitaire wargame by Mike Lambo. And you might be saying, whoa, 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 didn't you already cover this or cover a Mike Lambo book? Well, I've covered several Mike Lambo books. He's been relatively prolific in this area and has several: Battles of Medieval Britain, Battles of Normandy, that might be the one you might be thinking of, Beaches for the Brave, The Race to Bastogne, Ghost of the Jungle, and now Fields of Normandy, which if you notice here, these are a little bit smaller in size than the other books. I don't know if that's a new print or not, or new issue, or the way they're doing it now, because he has all his books listed here. And I believe this Fields of Normandy was the first, so I imagine this might be a reprinting if it has all his books listed in there now. But one feature about Mike Lambo's books are that they're, in my opinion, just a step away or a very related relative or cousin to actual board war games. There's a lot of solo board games in this space now with Worthington and Kirkpatrick and Patterson and Minden. I'm probably leaving out somebody. Oh, there's a new one, Mitchell. I did a book on his, or a video on his book. So there's a lot of stuff in this space, but these I find are closer to what we consider hex and counter war games. There are usually hexes, not all of them, but there's usually a hex grid and terrain, and you're moving units on that grid. In fact, some people might actually use counters. They might use miniatures. They might use other markers. They're designed to be written in or written on, and keeping track of what you do on the page itself, which, you know, I don't like that. I got my hangups, but that's one thing that I like to keep these pristine. So I make copies, or there's some people say trace paper. There's all kinds of different ways you can keep track of these. And in fact, when I do, I'm planning on doing a piece that covers this whole space, all the different offerings, or at a high level. And I might talk about some of that, about how different people, keep track of things in the book without actually defacing or marking up the book. And I've seen more for Lambo's games, more different options and varieties of how people do things for Lambo's games than others. I mean, people use miniatures, or they'll pull stuff from Memoir 44 and use those terrain counters. I mean, it's relatively elaborate. So, but this is a solitaire book, and if you haven't seen one of his before, you can go look at my other pieces. I have it in the playlist of Wargame books, but they're relatively similar in setup. You have your contents here, with your background, how this book works, suggested map annotations, because again, you're going to be marking, or it's designed to be marked in. You have your rules, your mission setup. It talks about map, turn tracker, turn process. I mean, this is a solitaire game, so the process, or AI, or procedure, or sequence of play are going to be relatively important to follow, because that's what recreates the effect of having another player. You've got orders, morale, British fire zones, revealing enemy units. So you have all these different rules. So the rules start on page 7 and basically go down to 17. So you roughly 10 pages of rules. There's a player aid overview. Then you have missions, and this has 15 missions. So you got 15 different missions that you can play here, and they're replayable. I mean, you could copy the page and mark it up, or use it however you want to use it. But I mean, if you write in this book, you're going to have to erase, and that's going to have limited play or replayability the more you mark this up. I'm sure Mike Lambo would love for you to mark this up and then buy another one, and mark that up and buy another one. I mean, that would be great. Then there's a whole build your own mission section there as well. So you've got introduction, and the worlds are not dense. They are in paragraph form, but relatively good size font, large font actually, and clear to see and understand. Here's your notations. Again, it's designed to be marking on the map. Here's a discussion about the maps themselves. Turn tracker, here's your turn process. This is probably the heart of the game here, this turn process, which is almost 2 pages, but relatively clear, it looks like. Here's your orders, and there's usually an order system in his games, or at least in the hex grid type games. And then there's some specific rules on fire, grenade attack, take cover, scouting, rally. There's some specific areas there. Here's morale, fire zones, revealing enemy units. So I imagine there's a little bit of fog of war here. Flanking and support, mortars, half tracks. Piot teams, minefields, artillery, rivers, adjusting the difficulty. So that's it. That's your rules. Here's your player aid overview, which basically gives you kind of your sequence of play, mostly, you know, how you're going to do things, and then checking for turn track victory conditions there. Then you have a mission, and most of his books are laid out this way, where you have all the stuff you need to know for the mission or to play the game on the left-hand side. Then you have the actual game or the map or the board, the equivalent of a board on your right-hand side here. And so this is what you need to know to play the game. I mean, you need to look at the rules, but then it's played out over here on this side. Now, one thing I will say about Fields of Normandy, that is, to me, I just noticed just paging through that it's different than some of the other ones. They're relatively small engagements. These are really, you know, this is your board right here. Not a whole lot there. You got 4 turns and a very small board. So this probably is more of an introductory type scenario to get into the system. And again, if this was his first in this line of books, I can understand why this kind of starts out smaller than grows bigger as you get into the other series. But as you see here, these are relatively small engagements here. There's not a lot of map space here, which, you know, let's compare that to the battles of Normandy. You know, you've got a larger, you know, full page of a full page map, so to speak, or a full page board that you're working on there with battles of Normandy. So these are relatively small engagements, or smaller, and more tightly compact. And as you see, they're starting to get a little bit bigger as you go through here, but I don't think any of these get to the extent that they were like in battles, which is a full page layout of these. So and each one of these is a different scenario. So again, I mean, you'd want to do something you can probably play on this with counters or miniatures or however you want to mark what's happening on this playing area, or you can use trace paper or put a plexiglass over this and then mark on that. I mean, there's several different ways. I've tried that, and I've also tried, I normally copy, but I've tried the plexiglass route as well. But this is where your game's going to be played. You're going to be making your notations and doing however you want to keep track of it here, and that's where the game, and this is basically the engine or the guts of the game. But there you have it. So there's several missions, and this is 15. This might be the most, and you got to build your own mission. So this is, you know, a little kind of do-it-yourself kit here to build your own mission. So this might, I'd have to go back and look. This might be the most missions that are offered. Plus, you can build your own. So you got quite a fair amount of gameplay here going through this. And again, I think this was the first in the line, so there might have been tweaks. I probably should check, and I haven't had a chance really to go back and play these kind of back to back, but there might have been developments, you know, from this as he got into, you know, the rest of these here, and improvements over time. And I imagine that probably definitely is, there's definitely changes based on, the time period as well. That I do know that from the Battles of Medieval Britain is medieval, and then you've got Ghost of the Jungle is Vietnam. So there are some differences there from the World War II fare. But there you have it. So this is what you get in Fields of Normandy. Love to know your thoughts on this. As you see here on the back, the Fields of Normandy is an accessible, portable, solitaire hex encounter style wargame in a book. Instructions and game maps are included. You just need to bring a pencil, 2 standard 6-sided dice, and an eraser. Your task is to order your rifle squads, machine gun teams, mortar teams, and Piat teams across the map to achieve your objectives, countering any enemy threat which is found along the way. The game rules produce, position, and attack with the enemy units whilst you focus on your objectives. Clear rules, 15 missions across varied maps with varied enemies. Provides plenty of replayability as you recreate the Allies' push into Normandy and World War II. Good luck. Your troops await your orders. So, I think this is a great place to start in this series of books, in that it has, it's again smaller maps, so you can kind of get into and figure out what the system is. And I imagine that even if the system does change a little bit as you go into these other books, I imagine the core, at least I haven't played one of these yet, but the core looks like it's the same kind of, for at least most of these, it looks like it has kind of the same core system. So probably worthwhile, going into this. So anyway, that's what I have for today. Love to know your thoughts on this or any of in this series. Love to see a discussion going on that. And if you want to get into this whole space, that's fine as well. There's a lot to be offered out here. I know this is not for everybody. I mean, if you're not a fan of solo play, or not a fan of these book formats, you want a meatier experience, more detailed, more crunch, then that's fine too. Stick with what you know, stick with what you like. Whatever that might be. Whatever beverage that might be. I'm gonna have me another sip now. Stick with what got you here. So anyway, that's what I have for you today. Love to have any thoughts or comments on this. Appreciate your time. I know it's precious, so any amount of time spent, watching me ramble is greatly appreciated, and I hope it adds something to your day. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.